the Sergeant Major of the Army eliminating the requirement to make diversity a consideration for selecting NCOs for top leadership positions. For those that don't know what NCO stands for, it stands for non-commissioned officers. It's the enlisted men that we're speaking of here, men and women. Well, that sounds like a win for, a loss for DEI and a win for the good guys.
Yeah, Kristian, it absolutely is a win for the good guys. It's a win for common sense. It's a win for meritocracy. It's a win for building a military force that is focused on being able to win the nation's battles should it be called upon to do that. The previous Sergeant Major of the Army was a guy named Michael Grinston, and he was very, very, very on board with the progressive left wing. I watched him over a number of years. Him and his public affairs director seemed to source most of their positions based on what left-wing Twitter was telling them, and he was fully on board. He was all about making the force look pleasing to the political masters. And so it's been very refreshing to watch Sergeant Major of the Army Michael Weimer, who took over just a little bit over a year ago. And actually, when he took over, I wrote a piece called 7 Things the New Sergeant Major of the Army Could Do to Help the Force. And Sergeant Major Weimer has done the majority of them. It's been really refreshing to watch. And the news broke just this week that he's now eliminated DEI as a consideration for top enlisted selections. And for your listeners, what that means is you reach certain ranks, like you might reach Sergeant First Class and then Master Sergeant and Sergeant Major. And those selection boards do factor diversity. But then beyond that, when you reach that rank, it's local leadership that decides where they're going to place you. Are they going to make you a company first sergeant, and so on and so forth. And the old policy under the previous Sergeant Major of the Army was, well, now that you're promoted, we're going to still try to further push the DEI goals by making sure that the job you get is tied to whether you are diverse or not. Those are key jobs that you need for promotion. So it's a win for Army values today. It's a win for how we should focus on our military, that the new Sergeant Major of the Army has nixed that requirement, and they're going to be looking at the whole person, not just their intersectionalities, when deciding who to place in these top positions.
That's refreshing news to hear, but it's frustrating to hear the previous Sergeant Major of the Army. And look, I want leaders of potentially my children to be qualified based on their ability to lead, not anything other than that. Their ability to lead, their track record as a leader is what the military should be. The Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard should pay attention to. It's their track record. How well have they led in the past? How do they project as a leader at the higher levels? Chase, you wrote a piece at realcleardefense.com about the new Sergeant Major of the Army, and what do you want him to do in that office?
Well, he's done a lot of it, and I give him tremendous credit for that. But what I wanted to see primarily was that Sergeant Major Weimer would stop using that office as a tool of social progressivism. For your listeners, the Sergeant Major of the Army is the top enlisted man of the service, and every branch of the service has that. They have a top 4-star general, and they have a top E9 NCO. In the Army, that's called the Sergeant Major of the Army. And the purpose of that office is that guy or gal is supposed to be a scout for the top officers. Go around the force, help keep a pulse on what the tone is among the enlisted men and women, and be their representative there in the Pentagon and in policy deliberations. The previous Sergeant Major of the Army saw his role really as one of a social activist as well as his public affairs director. They were nonstop sourcing on Twitter from the most hardcore left-wing accounts they could find. Day in, day out, it was about how can we make the Army more inclusive, how can we make the Army more DEI friendly, how can we make the Army a place that people who are less apt to serve in terms of patriotism would want to serve because they see social and financial benefits for being in the military. And they were very, very, very effective at that. And they used that office as a bully pulpit to try to shut down conservatives in the force who might question the direction that the military is going. As a matter of fact, when I was on my final leave out of the Army, I got the chance to do a legislative fellowship at the state capitol in Topeka. There was a news story that came out about the previous Sergeant Major of the Army criticizing many of the moves that he made that I've just told you about. And I retweeted it with a criticism of him. No joke. I was forced to sit around and wait for that guy to call me. He put an entire day into having his staff track me down. And this is while I was working at the state capitol for a lawmaker in Topeka, technically not even really in the Army anymore. And so that's what they were all about, and it was extraordinarily frustrating to watch the results of it. And so it was really great the last year to watch Sergeant Major Weimer pull that office back away from social activism. He's got a new public affairs director who's doing great work, who's made it clear that his role is not just to listen to the groanings and the struggle sessions out there of left-wing folks on X, but that his job is to help the Sergeant Major of the Army communicate what he's doing. And so overall, he's done a really great job. The one thing I would like to see him do that he hasn't yet is I would like to see him play an active role in making right the wrongs that the Army did to people over COVID policy. That's kind of really the one area that I made a recommendation in my article that he has not yet got after. And I don't know what his personal opinion is on that. I don't know the man. I've never met him, never worked with him. But if you're in that position, what have you got to lose? They're not going to promote you any further. So I would really like to see before he is out that he would make some meaningful step in that direction.